So I still have war on my mind for some reason, and this is Grand Tactician Civil War. The Civil War game that supposedly has it all. And I do mean all. But this here is just a battle tutorial. It's the Battle of Winchester, which I'm not personally familiar with. I guess it's historical. It takes place somewhere in Virginia. I'm playing the part of the Confederates. So I've got my forces here are a little scattered right now because Ewell's division just arrived during the night. This is actually the second day of the battle. And first off, the map is a little weird. It's kind of hard to see sometimes because they try to make it all Civil War-y, which is cool, but it takes a little getting used to say the least. I've already taken my first objective of Kernstown right there with Stonewall Jackson's division. Ultimately, I have to get everybody up to the north to take Winchester right there, the town and the hill just to the west. So you can zoom in the map and you go straight to this kind of view here, more of a tactical view. And those lines represent basically command lines from your headquarters there at the bottom, lines going out to the units that they control, in this case brigades, and get them in motion. And I kind of like the pathfinding here. If there's a road available, they'll take it. This is speeded up a little bit because the tutorial told me to speed it up. They all get into marching columns and they get on the road. And you can go in a little closer and kind of hear them complaining and marching and all that kind of good stuff. But you see what I mean here about how it's a little hard to read. You got all these arrows going all these different ways. You got these feathered arrows, which I'm really not sure what those mean. And then we can zoom right back out and get the big picture again. Yeah, that circle that the cursor's over right now, command range, that is where you can issue commands and your units will get them, as far as I can tell. So, we got Ewell's division still marching up the road here, and it dawned on me that this is really the biggest part of the game right here is the setup. Just getting all of your units where you want them. And I didn't do a very good job of that because you can see they go one way and then an arrow goes back the other way. And I honestly don't know what the heck was going on here. And I could not figure out how to fix it. So we had some traffic jams here. The cavalry's waiting for somebody to pass and so on and so forth. And they're way up there for some reason. There's my artillery moving along. But they're getting there. Slowly but surely getting up to the point where I plan to launch my attack from, which is Milltown. Now, a long time ago, on a much older computer, I had a Civil War game that I liked very much because it had a campaign mode where the war didn't necessarily go the way the real war went. For instance, I had no Battle of Gettysburg. I had a big, huge fight in the Battle of Cincinnati, and the less said about the Battle of Boston, the better. I was playing the Union, and, well, obviously I wasn't doing too well in that one, was I? But we've got traffic jams still going on here, and here we've got my cavalry marching up that road, and then for some reason they turn around and march back the other way. But eventually, I got everybody set up, more or less the way I kind of wanted them. And Jackson's in overall command. So I clicked on him and set up an advance. And this is the part, one part at least, I really don't understand. Kind of futzed around with this. I couldn't just advance for some reason. I don't know why. I could issue the orders. Well, eventually that's what I did. And they kind of started moving forward. Okay, so I skipped a whole bunch, and here we go with the actual fight. This is on the hill just to the west of Winchester. This is where the Union forces had set up in force, as it turns out. This part I thought went pretty well because I had, some overlapping fields of fire here. They tried to advance. That didn't get them anywhere, so they turned around and walked back the other way. And a good time was had by all. And you have to be really careful giving movement orders like that when the fighting's going on, because they'll stop doing everything else, as you might expect, to form up the way you want them to form up. Far better to have them formed up the way you want before you even get in contact with your enemy. Not that I'm an expert on warfare, but kind of common sense if you ask me. Now, it goes without saying that this tutorial must have been on stupid easy setting, because clearly the Union forces are not doing anything you might think they would do in a situation like this. Now, it all wasn't peaches and cream. There I had a brigade decide they'd had enough, and they walked off the other way. Can't really say as I blame them. They'd been standing there shooting for quite some time. But I had somebody else I could move into position there. But see, here's what I mean. I had a big hole in my lines. You'd think the Union would take advantage of that. Meanwhile, I still had to take the town of Winchester, and as it turns out, there was not a single Union soldier in that entire town. So I got my flags all over the place, and eventually I set up to launch a flanking attack on that hill from the town. Got my hole plugged back up, and the Union is in just horrific disarray at this point. By the way, those guys over on the right, those guys, they're not dead. I've got them laying down. I don't know if that really gives them much of an advantage, but they certainly seem to be doing a lot of shooting. As you can see, it's starting to get towards dark here. Everything stops at 7 p.m. Which makes sense. There really wasn't a whole lot of fighting during the night fighting, during the Civil War. Here's the overall situation, looking good for the Confederates. You can see I've got my forces set up in Winchester to come up that hill on the Union's left flank. And again, it's pretty difficult to see as it starts to get towards dark. But eventually the Union decided, unit by unit, that it had had quite enough of this business, and they started scattering off the hill. The enemy is retreating. All's well that ends well for the Confederacy. By the way, the tutorial totally broke down about step 40-something, about halfway through the tutorial. It just stopped. The game worked fine. The tutorial just stopped. And the Union scattered off the field. We got a couple of headquarters there who apparently had a Learjet stashed somewhere, and that's how they made it off the field through my lines. But that's Grand Tactician Civil War in a nutshell, and I will see you later.